Scott Bell as our guest host. I'm Josh Hewlett. Thank you so much for joining. Robert, Scott Bell, how are you? The man, the myth, the legend. How are you doing today?
Josh, doing well. I know you threatened to body slam me if I didn't show up, and I said I'm not afraid. You're half the man you used to be, considering how many pounds you've lost. It's unbelievable.
That's right.
Still, I'm so amazed.
I've lost to Robert Scott Bell. I mean, are you
Yes,
are
you've
you
lost.
200 pounds? How much do you weigh?
No, I'm up to 152.4. This is great. I'm building up and trying to get you. So yeah, we're in different weight classes, that's for sure.
That's
Uh,
awesome, man.
But fitness. I love talking fitness with you because I remember years ago when we were connecting and you were getting really plugged in and jacked up with our your dad, kind of our adopted dad too,
Yeah.
John. And then I was doing kickboxing at the time, and I have a lot of great stories about Cardio Miracle when I started that fitness routine, and then added the Cardio Miracle in. It was like, if there were ever any doubts, it was like, no, there weren't. But it's just I've got more stories like that too to share. But again, your journey, you started, taking those steps, no pun intended. Started the various forms of cardio type of activities, weight activities, walking, movement, and I'm like, man, movement is life itself. And thank God you've been doing that. And also, you're actually, your story is inspiring so many. Now, I've got a story to inspire so many too, or embarrass so many.
I'm
I went
excited.
I went to Atlanta the last week to visit with my mom, who just turned 92 years of age. Okay,
Ooh,
92. And what do you think of when you think of a 92-year-old little old lady? You don't think of my mom because she's on zero drugs. And I interviewed her for my Sunday conversation this last Sunday. And I have yet to interview anybody else like this. And I don't mean like my mom, but specifically like this. She was on her exercise bike the entire 56 minutes of the interview. I was interviewing her while she was riding on an exercise bike at 92 on
amazing.
zero drugs. And I'm so proud of her because the first thing when I got in to Atlanta and I saw her pouring her own Cardio Miracle. She might forget other things, but she doesn't forget her Cardio Miracle every day.
Heck
And I'm
yeah,
like,
man.
so if anybody at any age, if you're going to say you can't do it, well, because you're not Josh, well, okay. You can't say that because I'm not 92, so I can't do it. I'm not like Robert's mom. And so it's really impressive. And it's funny because I'm about to hit 60 in this body. This is kind of a crazy thing to consider, 60 revolutions around the sun. And, for the last, I don't know, 5 or so years, every year, my goal has been to do as many burpees as I am old in this body.
Yeah,
In the time span of the song by AC/DC known as Thunderstruck.
heck
Everybody
yeah.
knows that.
Love that
Why
song.
did I choose that? Two reasons. One, it pumps me up like some, rock and roll, right? Two, it's 4 minutes and 50 seconds long, so it's not too short. I have a fighting chance, right? And so when I started the Cardio Miracle, it took my training regimen way up and my recovery and all that. Now, the gym I was going to originally, that went out of business, unfortunately,
Yeah.
and so I've been having to be disciplined to work out at home. I've got my own boxing set and I do stuff, but it's never the same. When you go out to a
And the
place, you know how it
energy,
is.
man. Yeah, heck
Yeah.
yeah.
And so I finally was like, this is getting ridiculous. And I don't normally do New Year's resolutions, but I said, you know what? It's time. I'm not traveling for a bit. I'm going in. So I started at the boxing gym locally, another boxing gym.
Oh yeah.
And, initially it was like, yeah, I could feel I wasn't as in shape. I wasn't out of shape, but I was feeling it. And so I'm like, yeah, this last Friday, I'm seeing my mom and her fitness level. And I'm like, you know what? I got to go ahead and do it. I'm almost 60. I'm going to see how I'm doing. So I hit Thunderstruck on the phone, played it, went down, did my 60 burpees. I did it in 4 minutes and 40 seconds. Okay.
Woo.
60 burpees. Now I'm not 60 yet, so it doesn't count, but it's warm up.
Dude.
So then on Sun, I did that interview with my mom on her exercise bike for 56 minutes. She was on, I was just sitting down. She was on her exercise.
Sure,
I'm
sure.
like, dude, I gotta keep up with her. So I went ahead the next day and did it again. And 20 seconds faster, I did 60 burpees in 4 minutes, 20 seconds. So with time to spare. So yeah, exactly. And I'm doing my
Woo.
cardio, of course. So I wanted to share with you, no matter what level of fitness you're after or even starting from, you don't run right the marathon the first day.
Heck yeah.
But if you include Cardio Miracle in that regimen, whatever your needs are, it will facilitate your ability to do things. I think many of you might think, oh, I can never do that.
It's huge.
And I'm just saying, watching my mom, you can't argue at 92. Anyway, so that's my
Dude,
open
that is huge. Thank
statement
you
today.
so much for that intro. We have such a great first question. I want to kick it off with Lars. Thank you. Can you take too much Cardio Miracle, Robert Scott Bell?
You'd have a hard time doing that. I will say, my son is over there doing like boxing stuff up and helping to get things ready for shipping. And of course, Cardio Miracle kind of is almost on tap there. He said he has drunk so much in a day that he got a little bit of a loose, let's just say,
Okay.
so it wasn't dangerous, but the body's smart. If you take too much of something you don't need, the right response is the body goes, let's move this on out a little quicker, right?
Yeah.
But technically, because of the levels of everything in it, you'd be hard pressed to do it. Now, what is required, what is needed? Again, we've talked about a wide variety of circumstances. There are those that are in, let's just say it, cardiovascular need. I'm not mentioning diseases. I'm just saying they know they're starting at a deficit in some way. And oftentimes you'll have them take a scoop in the morning, scoop in the middle, there may be 2, 3, or 4 scoops. I know your dad's big guy. He's taken a lot more than that in a day without an issue. So, and what would my concern be? If there was a high quantity of vitamin D in it, because vitamin D is a fat-soluble complex hormone. It's not just like a water-soluble C. If you take too much, you pee it out. So in that context, I think it's done so responsibly that even if you did multiple doses, you're not going to take too much D either, which is great. And of course, on the D front, I always like to remind you that we found that the pathways that this supports, because it's a comprehensive food product, as Judy Mikovits says, it feeds the body's ability to utilize the stored vitamin D that is very abundant within your fat cells. And everybody has them, whether you consider yourself fat or not. We all have some, and that's where it goes. So to access the stored D is somehow to now open up the floodgates of something you've had but you couldn't get. And so you kept taking more and more, and that's where you get into trouble. But you're not going to have that trouble with Cardio Miracle. I know that's a long way of answering an important question. And if you want to add nuance to that, go ahead, Josh.
No, I love it. So right here, I've got 2 servings in here, and I do like 3 of these a day. And I have 25,000 steps today. So I walk every day. I walk miles and miles and miles every day. And so, it just depends on kind of where you're at. Exactly. I'm 6'3". I used to be 500 pounds almost, and now I'm down to 280. And so the point of it, I start my day at 4 a.m. I do HIIT training. On a fasted stomach, I go to the gym by 5. I lift weights. I was gonna tell you, Robert, dude, this morning I was pumping out 120 in each hand and
What?
doing 12 reps with the dumbbells.
You can bench press me like it's nothing.
So I gotta get in there and get you. No, so I was feeling really good because I'm doing kind of a carb load right now. But no, just to answer your question, Lars, it kind of depends on how you're feeling and really just listen to your body. We suggest for the best dosing is 2 servings a day, and that really depends on how often you're taking it, how much you want to take, how big you are, your stature, your height. It's not one size fits all, unfortunately, but we do have 58 whole and organic fruits and vegetables in here, so it's just can you get too much of a good thing? I mean, not
You're nourishing those pathways adequately, and let your body be your guide. Like you said, my son, who's very slight, he's like 125, right? He's so slender, he's all wiry. He found out he could take too much, and then his body just went, okay, move it on out. But he wasn't harmed by it in any way. That's the beauty of it. And I'm a 1 a day guy because I'm pretty ridiculous in terms of my diet and lifestyle. But let's say if I'll do it and then I'll go work out in the morning. Some days I have meetings all morning and I can't do that. Trainings I have to do. So I'll do an afternoon workout. I'll likely take a second dose of Cardio Miracle because I know I'm going to push my body at that point. Or when I'm out on the road, traveling. Now this last week wasn't a big deal because was hanging out with mom. I wasn't doing an event or anything, so it was more fun time and celebration time. But when I'm out on the road pushing my body in a different way, I'm usually doing two or even sometimes more. And I don't necessarily need that, but I need the nourishment when I'm under a lot of stress and activity that's not just physical, right? A lot of
Yeah.
mental activity. It's requiring that blood flow and all of that. So
Yeah.
the brain and nervous system uses a lot.
Right, right. Thank you. And Janie brings up a good question. She says, "When do we learn specifics about Cardio Miracle?" And I asked her if she has any specific question that she wanted to point towards. One of the best resources that we have is if you go to cardiomiracle.com/studies, you can read like everything about the product and the four studies that we've had done on the product specifically, and so you can really dive in there and see a lot of specifics in there, Janie. And then Pat, she says, "What about vitamin A? We don't want too much of that either." And so, what was your response to that, Robert?
Well, vitamin A, of course, I get a lot from pastured butter, right? That's one of those things when we were afraid of fat, we really became deficient in really critical vitamins like that, life essential vital elements, right? Are we dealing with a lot of, I don't have the ingredient list with me, but I don't recall, vitamin A being a
We
focus
don't,
as much.
yeah, we
Yeah.
don't have a
So
ton in there, but yeah,
it,
it's very it's very ratioed out. Just to answer your question, so um, we have all the B's in there.
yeah,
We do have a little bit of vitamin A. We do not, and that's the thing. The reason why John went, my dad, I call my dad John. He went to Dr. Tadeusz Malinsky, who is a scientist at Ohio at a university in Ohio, and
hmm
he asked him, "I want you to test Cardio Miracle and see how long the nitric oxide lasts, how long it sustains." And the Tadeusz Malinsky, he said, "But what if it doesn't work?" And he said, "I want to know. I'd like to know so I can fix it." And so he called him on the phone. He said, "Who are you? Are you a biochemist? Like, how have you put this together?" And John, he just said, I put two and two together. I've talked to Judy Mikovits. I've talked to some of the most brilliant scientists and doctors in all the country and the world, and so I put this formulation together with divine help, and he's able to have that, the concoction that we do have now. Now we
yeah,
do have nine different iterations, or eight or nine different iterations of Cardio Miracles. So whenever there's new research, we're at the cutting edge of it, and he is going to make sure that it's always the best. So
yeah.
that's a great question. And Anna says, "I'm 95 pounds. I've been taking it twice a day. Is that too much for me? I feel great."
No, there you go. Your answer is, I feel great.
Yeah, exactly.
Let your body tell you. It does not lie. If you had like my son's experience when he was just down in it all day and you got a little bit of loose stool, that would tell you, okay, I've taken enough, I can back off. But at two a day, you feel great, nothing like, no problem. I've said this to your dad, and I've said it in lectures on my show. I've mentioned, I said, this is the most, maybe the only, but certainly the most responsible way to facilitate the production of nitric oxide, or Judy, Dr. Judy, she always takes it to the next level, endothelial nitric oxide synthetase. Because rather than just giving you something and forcing your body, it's working with your body's pathways to do what it's designed by God to do, but more efficiently, and to sustain it, as well as to counteract the rise of pro-oxidant elements, like we've talked about the peroxynitrite. When these other companies that are out there trying to boost nitric oxide in some way, they do not have the comprehensive knowledge or understanding or concern that I would to do this responsibly. If you're going to work with the body to produce nitric oxide, you got to know metabolically what else happens. And what we always know is when you stimulate a rise of NO, you get the rise of ONOO, the peroxynitrite. And so the Cardio Miracle formula is the only formula that I've seen is responsible enough to acknowledge that. Whether your dad knew it consciously or not, he slayed it with God's help.
Yeah.
That it counteracts that rise, and that's what Tadeusz, Malinsky, basically Dr. Malinsky, had found out, that not only were you getting a sustained production for a prolonged period, 24 hours or more, but you had the 50% or more reduction of the peroxynitrite rise, which means you're not irresponsibly jacking up one good thing, but jacking up bad things too and having to deal with it. You're helping to counteract that in a way that when you're on a vital, minerally rich food or foods, that's why we call this a food product, that you have done it responsibly. And that's what I'm saying is so critical for me. It's like me doing all of my research. There's a lot of products out there that can do something. And I go, well, I acknowledge it does that, but you're not looking at what also it's doing or not doing. And that's my bad habit, which is a good habit. It's like Dr. Judy's habit, is we look at the pathways. What does this impact? How does this impact this? Look at it all as opposed to, let's just look at that one thing.
Yeah.
And then ignore everything else. That's not responsible, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's good. It's a good point. Thank you very much. And so we had another question from James. He said, I use pomegranate juice. Is that good?
Pomegranate juice is,
Yeah.
I mean, it's got a lot of great benefits.
Yeah.
Not contraindicated with Cardio Miracle at all, as far as I can tell.
No.
So if you got
awesome.
good, clean sources of it, great
Yeah,
superfood.
I would just say as long as it doesn't have like a bunch of sugar in it, which I don't imagine it would.
Added
but-
sugars, yeah.
But yeah, sometimes they're gonna add some sugar and preservatives, but it just all depends on how you feel. So let's see, and then we got a question from Liza. It said, "Will Cardio Miracle help the hemochromatosis effect in the heart?"
Well, you're talking about blood health, the health of
Yeah.
the blood, hemochromatosis. And when we feed the blood the nutrients it needs, I would only add one thing as an adjunct to Cardio Miracle in this that I think would be critical, and that would be the copper, the sovereign copper. And we've talked about that before because we are so deficient in that one mineral, and making it just, you don't need a lot, just the bioavailable bioactive form, and then you can feed the body's ability to use iron appropriately. You cannot absorb and utilize iron appropriately. Iron becomes a very toxic rusting agent in your body without copper, creating aberrant blood abnormalities, basically, including hemochromatosis. And also, coagulation issues, abnormal coagulation, in the absence of what? Copper. And yet we've been told to fear that mineral along with selenium, which selenium we do have in the Cardio Miracle. So obviously I'm not your doctor if that's a concern you have for you or someone else, but please look into it. I'm not making this up. Once you begin to see the pathways that are nourished, again, like what does copper do? Like Cardio Miracle very responsibly nourishes very critical pathways to utilize the things that are life-sustaining when they are appropriately supported, but can be very inflammatory and dangerous when they're not. And that's where we look at the various minerals and why we would take them, what form, and we don't need to take anything to excess. And that's, again, the beauty of Cardio Miracle. You're not going bonkers on any one ingredient, right? Even the vitamin D is very responsible in terms of the amount because it opens up the pathways of utilization of even the stored and present vitamin D already there. So this is quite different that you've entered into this, and I'm glad you found out about it.
Yeah, so I Googled that question. I switched out Cardio Miracle for nitric oxide. And actually, the answer says, based on search results, nitric oxide is essential for cardiovascular health, but in the context of iron overload conditions like hemochromatosis, which I was very impressed that she spelled that correctly. It says excess iron significantly reduces nitric oxide bioavailability, leading to endothelial dysfunction and potential cardiac damage. So while nitric oxide typically aids vascular function, it does not directly reverse iron-induced heart damage. So what I would suggest, and there are over 200,000 studies on Google, if you go in and switch any of these questions with, will nitric oxide help with blank? Then I'm sure if you were to put that question in as nitric oxide will help, then, they came up with several million results. And so you will be able to find, I'm sure, some kind of research paper or something that was written about that,
Yeah.
and I would search the internet. There's so many good things on the internet, and I know that consequently there's some bad things as well, but there
Yeah.
there are some really good results on there that you could find, referring to that. And then also, obviously we're not doctors. We're just very passionate about health and wellness, and we've talked to thousands of our customers, and
Oh, and I've read so many peer-reviewed articles about diet, nutrition, drug toxicity, et cetera, that I'm not fooling around when I'm talking about this. And you looked it up and validated exactly what I was saying. If
yeah,
you've got iron overload, you've got copper deficiency by definition. That's the Sovereign Copper or the Sovereign Copper Pro. And it's an easy resolution because the body cannot metabolize appropriately the iron that you have in abundance. Once you have the copper, suddenly the utilization of iron goes back to normal or optimal, and that gets you out of that crisis. Again, I'm not treating you with a drug. I'm just telling you the mineral imbalance results in the mineral imbalance. And
yeah.
that's where we're correcting it with both Cardio Miracle and, when needed, additional copper.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And what Cardio Miracle will help with the copper and the silver that Robert Scott Bell has, it's going to help. It's the nitric oxide is going to help it get to where it needs to go with that, increased blood flow and the vasodilation, and so it's amazing. So
Delivery is so important. You're right. And everything relies upon that blood flow, that endothelial integrity, not just the vasculature, but also the lymphatic system,
yeah,
which many people have lymphatic stagnation or stasis. And that's also movement. That's why my mom at 92 is doing so well. She's moving, she's walking,
heck
she's
yeah,
on the
man.
exercise bike, and you're walking like crazy. I mean, the lymphatic system doesn't have a pump. It relies on you moving.
Yeah, yeah. And then Robert, will you refresh my memory where people can go get your copper and your silver? Is it just
Well, you guys can
robertscottbell.com?
find everything at robertscottbell.com. I don't sell anything. I don't even sell Cardio Miracle. I tell you where to get it for the best
Yeah,
deal, hopefully. But all those links are what we call RSB approved,
it's awesome.
right? Robert Scott Bell, RSB approved. So you'll see Cardio Miracle linked there as well, and you'll see the Sovereign Copper is linked as well, and you'll have discounts on all of those things. I try to get everybody the best deals on it. So wherever you get it, it's great. But if you want a one-stop area of like, what does RSB, use and recommend, because this is what I use and recommend. The only thing I don't use are products for menstrual difficulty. I don't personally have any of those things, but certainly have women in my life that, and I can even recommend things to help you there. As a
Yeah,
homeopath, we address everything. So.
yeah. All right, and Grace, I don't know if she had to leave, but we do have a replay of this, Grace. But she said she's been using Cardio Miracle for several years, is 76 young, very active, square dancing 2 to 4 times per week. And
Nice.
I'm here to glean more info to pass on to others when they ask, how do I have all the energy and move the way I do? She's on Social Security, so she hopes we have a special. And the nice thing about this is we are coming out with a heart special later on this month, and so we want everyone to know that is coming, and that you'll be able to see that when it does come out. So very exciting on that front. So tell me, how long has your mom been on Cardio Miracle, man? Like, when did she get on it?
Well,
How old was she?
she I mean, when did we connect? I think about that because it was shortly thereafter that I'm like,
Right.
Mom, you got to get on Cardio Miracle. Look at
Yeah.
what. So we've probably been using it about the same period of time. So it's got to be how many years now? Not
Yeah.
that long, but has it been
It was
five
like
years?
four. Yeah, I was gonna say four or
Four
five
or
years.
five?
Yeah.
Yeah. So think about it. She started when she was what, 88?
Hmm.
I mean,
It's awesome.
God, look at her
But
now at
yeah,
92.
but she was obviously active before that. If she's still that active now, right?
Yeah, I mean, she didn't start from hunched over and not
Yeah.
walking, right? She was still moving, but it really, God, obviously allowing and facilitating her to continue that. And for whoever just wrote that about square dancing at 70 something, that means you're likely going to be dancing at 92, like my
Heck
mom.
yeah. Yeah.
Don't ever stop. When you stop moving, that's it. The other thing I want to mention is about muscle mass, right? And I mentioned this while I was there. Mom's 92 and she's giving me a great big bear hug. I'm like, is this Josh hugging me or is this my mom? She's strong. I'm like, dude, feeling her muscles. You're like,
You know, dude.
this is, this is the thing. When you see somebody that's elderly and frail, the moment if you touch them or hug them, you got to be gentle. They're frail; they can break because they are connective tissue weak, and their musculature. They're not using their muscles; they're losing muscle mass. And this is not. I'm not talking about the people who are doing Ozempic.
Yeah.
They're losing muscle mass due to drug-induced peptide injections. That's these people they're setting themselves up for disaster. But when we're talking about elderly people, when you see them starting to decay, you see they start hunching over, they can't hold themselves up. Gravity becomes too much for them, but you have to keep using it or you will lose it. That's the use it or lose it. But you have to nutrify the pathways of what? Vascular function so that the muscles, the bones, the tendon, all the connective tissue is nourished. So it's not just movement in absence of also nutrition, right?
Right.
And if you can't eat perfectly, at least do Cardio Miracle once or twice or more a day, depending on, because it's going to give you that food boost that you need because of all the minerals that are present.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and sorry, I want to apologize to Gene and to others. We missed some questions at the top here, so I'm going to go up here real quick
Hmm.
and see. So Gene had a really good question about her. She said, "I have a lower heart valve regurgitation. It affects my heart rate and rhythm. I have extreme fatigue, hard to exercise. 70 years old, work 3 days a week, extremely exhausted. Been on 2 scoops a day for 2 months. She does notice a difference in heart rate and rhythm,
Hmm.
um, but what would you say to that? I would just say keep going. But what do you have any suggestions,
Yeah,
Robert?
I stay the course. Of course, when you have a specific, unique diagnosis and you described it as such, we can't officially treat that. I know as a homeopath, there are remedies that may be indicated. One of those things when we talk about the heart is God's medicine for the heart, which is known as the hawthorn berry. And I know that there's some hawthorn in the Cardio Miracle, but sometimes people need, just like I said about the copper. Sometimes you have let's say a therapeutic need, not just a let's maintain things need, right? And so recognizing that the allopathic community, bless their hearts, look at every symptom as a drug deficiency. Now, I don't know if you're on any medications or not, but the reality is we would look at it like Dr. Judy Mikovits as a researcher as well, much less as a therapeutic like Dr. Michael Karlfeld, who sees it, clinically, right? We would look at these things as specific nutrient deficiencies, pathway dysfunction that affected one particular area of the heart, for instance. That may indicate the use of a homeopathic remedy for instance. Like I do a homeopathic hit every day on my show, and one of the recent ones you'll never forget is Veratrum Veridae, which, if I'm not mistaken, the English word is the hellebore. It sounds like a really hellacious remedy, but it's indicated for serious arterial to the heart, right artery heart disorders. I mean, really serious stuff. Now, I'm not saying that's the right remedy for you in this case, but the point is there are specific remedies that address specific things homeopathically that are not contraindicated even if you're on medication. We do know that people that are on
She's not on
numerous
medication,
drugs,
but yeah.
yeah, yeah, we do know that people, when they are on numerous drugs, you'll find the doctors will say, "Well, be careful. This could be contraindicated. That could be." They'll say hawthorn berry is contraindicated because they're on some other drug for the heart. Yet the hawthorn is trying to heal your heart. The drug is forcing something or suppressing something that's a symptom, but doesn't nourish your heart back to health. It's
Yeah.
just a stopgap, And I'm not telling people to stay on drugs, get off drugs. It's up to you and your doc to do that. But I'm giving you context with things like that. Yes, I agree with you, Josh. Stay the course. There's no contraindication. But what else can you do? I can't give you a definitive, specific answer here in this call. But if you
Yeah.
want to ask questions on my show, submit them or become a Patreon supporter. We do a Zoom meeting like this, sort of like this, once a month, except I get to see everybody that wants to
Yeah.
be seen when we interact once a month for that.
All right, and then I've got a question from Laura as well that we missed. Is Cardio Miracle good for arthritis? And that's another one that I would Google and put, is nitric oxide good for arthritis? And arthritis is inflammation. So, yes, I can tell you very definitively that anything with inflammation, nitric oxide is going to really help with that. And since we've proven that nitric oxide is sustained, both generated and sustained in Cardio Miracle, then
Hmm.
we know that that would help with that. So it some people say they feel a little pain when they do have arthritis. It's because they're getting that blood flow back in there. So, do you have anything to add to that, Robert?
Yeah, when we come to blood flow, we look at the extremities and we say that's a lot of times where you'll see joint pains and arthritic pains. Could be lower extremities, could be arms, hands, elbows, wrists, And blood flow has everything to do with what? The clearing the pathways of metabolic waste. Let's just assume it's a metabolic issue in terms of waste products. You're in the cellular metabolism, the life cycle of a cell. Just like anything, we digest as a large unit, and we eliminate, we create waste, we eliminate. Similarly, the cell does that. And so when you see the benefit of blood flow in and out of those areas, extremities, which is enhanced by what? Cardio Miracle. Why? Because of the endothelial nitric oxide synthetase eNOS or nitric oxide. You now have an increased or enhanced flow to get everything moving in and out. And one of the other things we've talked about that was discovered about this formula specifically is about this concept of cellular autophagy, which is about recycling waste as well as eliminating waste efficiently, more efficiently. So you're going to enhance that kind of process, which will reduce the reason there's inflammation in the joints, for instance. There's certainly a lot of other things I can talk about, but as a baseline answer, the Cardio Miracle would be a foundational starting point. And if you need something else, again, there's always unique needs for each of us, but we got to give a general answer and then we can go from there.
Yeah, man. And Laura actually want to send out prayers and good vibes to her. She's having cataract surgery tomorrow, so we definitely wish you the best and nothing but good vibes coming your way. So Pat has a good question. Her sister, age 62, has left ventricle heart failure following long COVID. She can't tolerate vitamin C. Any suggestions? Dr. RSB.
Okay. Well, God's medicine for the heart is the hawthorn berry. Now, I don't know how she's interacted or she's tried the Cardio Miracle yet to see how she responds to that. But with those sensitive situations, I'll always say start slow. Don't even do a full dose. If you don't, just go little, see how your body responds, because you're dealing with life or death circumstances with congenital or any form of heart failure, congestive, if you will, in this case, heart failure. And you might be, in those cases, needing therapeutic levels, I talk about, of Crataegus, which is the homeopathic medicine that's made from what? The hawthorn berry. So if somebody is in a very severe circumstance, I would have them do the Cardio Miracle and Dr. Christopher's hawthorn berry syrup. Okay, that's out of Utah. Dr. Christopher's got a lineage as an herbalist, he's like legendary, right? He's got family members that continue on with that, and they produce from the berry a fresh berry, so that it's like people love it so much they want to put it on their pancakes. That stuff, it's like syrup, right? Hawthorn berry, but it's like fresh. It's like you harvested it yourself. So in those extreme circumstances, I'll always go to that plus that. Like I said, you are asking a very specific question about a very serious consideration outside of I'm not doing great, but I'd like to do better, right? Yeah. What you're telling me is like, holy tamale, right? Now, having said that, please consult with your cardiologist, whatever. If you can find one that can work with you holistically, preferably. But I am a free speech guy. I'm willing to communicate. We don't sell that hawthorn berry syrup. Cardio Miracle doesn't sell that product, but I'm telling you that if you can utilize that, that is a godsend, much like the download that John Hewlett made for Cardio Miracle is a godsend.
Yeah, huge. Yeah, and what we like to suggest to people is like what we've seen. Like the reason why I'm on here is not just because I'm the VP of Cardio Miracle or because I'm John's son. It's literally because I've spoken to almost half of our customer base and I've heard the stories. I've talked people through situations and I know pretty much everything there is to know about this product and used it myself and had it at the cornerstone. And that's why I have lost 200 pounds on it, because I refuse to not be a product of the product. And so we both love that. That's why Robert and I are so chummy, because we both try to live our message, full bore. So appreciate it.
And I know in these situations we tend to get questions that go beyond basic product knowledge, and I respect that people are really looking for answers. They're sincere about it. Once again, we're not prescribing a drug. We're not treating a disease. We're facilitating, functional pathways And that might include the recovery from things you're talking about, but we have to be careful of what we say. But I respect you guys so much that you would ask the question, that I want to give you a little bit of a plus factor to consider, or do a little bit more homework on it, or listen to my broadcast. I'm on every day, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Figure out your time zone every day. Yeah.
Where do they find the Hawthorne syrup again? Sorry.
Dr. Christopher's Hawthorne Berry Syrup. One of my favorite outlets is choosetobehealthy.com, because he carries only really the things I use and recommend.
Yeah, I
like
just
that.
threw that in Google, you guys, and Dr. Christopher is the first one that comes up. So
Mhm.
he's up there. So
So when you need that extra need, right? Again, that's what I'm saying. Everybody's unique, and it might be just for a short time. You need to bump it up, right? And then you're good again, and then you go back to maintenance. That's
yeah.
life. That's life. Sometimes you have an immune challenge and you need a lot of Sovereign Silver, right? And then other times you're like, man, I'm doing great. I'm okay. I don't need much, So that's just what we're talking about. But as a fundamental, foundational bottom line, I'm doing my Cardio Miracle first thing every day. That's not negotiable.
Yeah, non-negotiable. I love it. And then last question from Lars: does caffeine cancel out Cardio Miracle benefits? And I can answer that real quick. No, that's just not going. It's just what happens is when you take Cardio Miracle on a fasted stomach, it begins producing nitric oxide within 0.3 of a second when it hits your tongue, and then it lives in your blood. So once you swallow it, then that's when it continues to produce and generate and sustain. So when you're mixing things in there, like protein, like caffeine, like other things that are kind of fighting with the generation and the sustainability, it's just going to take a little longer. So good, better, best. We suggest taking Cardio Miracle on a fasted stomach first thing when you wake up, and try to keep it away from things like protein or things like caffeine or coffee or whatever about 20 minutes before or after. But what say you, Dr. Bell?
Well, when we deal with coffee, of course, caffeine is an adrenal stimulant. It alters the energy flow of the body. That's why it can be problematic. Now, I'm not saying zero coffee for those that enjoy it. I'll have it occasionally. For me, it's more of a delicacy, an appreciation for something really nice, an organic cup of coffee and something like that. But for those that are sustaining themselves on it, and my producer, you all know Super Don, man, he was the coffee holic of coffee. I mean, he couldn't get by. Now he does so little coffee relative to what he used to, because his Cardio Miracle has replaced it. He's got his energy back. It doesn't mean he does zero, but boy, oh boy, was he able to reduce his reliance on that stimulant extraordinarily. And there's controversy surrounding homeopathy in coffee. A lot of people believe coffee antidotes homeopathy. My argument is more practical as far as biochemistry, in terms of if you are stimulating an energy source, or some kind of production like through the adrenal glands, you're going to alter what's available for other functions of the body. And so you might have a less benefit of the homeopathic remedy. I don't think of it in terms of, it cancels it. It's more or less you're altering the way energy is being utilized or produced in the body at that point. So hopefully that's a little helpful for you. And I'm not an anti-coffee fiend. I'm actually, I enjoy it. I can appreciate it. And certainly a good organic cup can have medicinal benefits as well. But for some, it's very harsh with the purine content on the digestive system. And so people that do that, and they're like, I wonder why I don't have great GI health. For you, coffee might not be helpful.
Yeah. Yep. And one last question. If we don't get to your questions, please send them to support@cardiomiracle.com. Kristen Mooney says, can I use this as a G-tube feeder? I don't know what that is. So
basically, if somebody is on it's a feeding tube. Basically, they're not able to chew or swallow. They might be unconscious, right? And so all of their nutrition is fed, through a G tube in a sense, going into the stomach, etc. And so it's a liquid. Now, a lot of times in the hospitals, what they're giving you is a lot of synthetic. Yeah. So, in my humble opinion, I would be like, I would much rather have Cardio Miracle and other things fed through that, because it's liquid, right? And that's the key. You can't really put solids in that G tube. So it's designed to deliver liquid nutrition. So for me, I'd have no problem with it. I'm not giving specific medical advice for somebody on a G tube, but to answer your question honestly, I think it's a great idea.
Awesome. All right, you guys, thanks so much. We've got to take off here, but please, if you have any other additional questions, please refer those to support@cardiomiracle.com. Please look us up and see that we're doing a podcast. It's called the Pulse Beat, and we really love to, make sure that you guys are seeing what we're putting out there. And if you can, follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, X. We're on Instagram. We're pretty much everywhere. So, love you guys. Thank you so much for your time, and love you, Robert Scott Bell. Thanks for your time, man. Appreciate you.
Good to see you. Love to the whole family, and hope to see you later in the month. Maybe you can come to my birthday party.
Yes, sir. Woo! Yes. Maybe we'll
And
do
do
some
60
boxing, man.
burpees with me, buddy.
60 burpees, dude. Let's do it. I love it. All right, guys. Have a great day. Thank you so much for your time.